Welcome, fearfully and wonderfully made human. Today's episode is one I'm particularly delighted about. I've always been fascinated by traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic practices, and how cultures and tribes across the globe approach healing. As a Latina American, I've seen how our culture often turns to conventional medicine shaped by commercials and mainstream practices. But what's always intrigued me are the holistic approaches, those rooted in centuries of wisdom that offer a more personalized, natural way of healing. That's why I am thrilled to introduce today's guest, Eva Mariana Garro. Did I say that right?
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you.
A bicultural and bilingual certified natural fertility and menstrual health expert. She's here to share her expertise on mastering menstrual cycles, boosting fertility, and balancing hormones. Knowledge that's empowering for women and, yes, even helpful for men to understand. So let's dive into this conversation. And I hope you take away a nugget or two to support your own journey toward health and well being. So, Eva, bienvenido. Welcome.
Thank you, Jen, for having me here. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So, would you tell us a little bit about who you are and how we met, or how because I know we're both part of that holistic business network, which is a pretty cool network, huh? And
Yeah.
so tell me how you got here to this journey of the founder of CEO of, am I saying it right?
Yes, have a fun.
Hava Fem.
Correct. All right. So, well, long story short, it was out of personal experience, just personal pain, physical pain. I had so much physical pain growing up during my teenage years. I used to have very bad cramps and like not being able to go to school, or if I went to school I would faint.
Wow.
It was horrible. I tried to look for answers, but then it was just the doctors doing their job, I guess, but without really going deeper
Mhm.
to the root cause of what might have been causing that. To this
Right.
day, I don't know if I had endometriosis or something.
I did.
Because
I was diagnosed with
Oh
endometriosis.
wow, we're gonna talk about that then.
Yes.
So it's
So,
just, it takes almost like 8 to 10 years on average to diagnose endo, for instance. So yeah, I suffered a lot from this for years. I never
right.
got any answers. I started even taking, well, of course, the doctors were like, just take the pill. It'll
Right.
regulate your
As a
cycles and
teenager.
make you
I
happy.
don't know.
Yes,
Was it as a teenager for you
yeah.
too?
But I
Yeah.
didn't take it. I never took it. I said no. Something inside me was like, you know what? I don't want to go that route. I don't know why. I don't even know why, but I don't want to take it.
Yeah.
So thankfully I didn't, but it didn't fix it, man, because I didn't have anything to try. And then we didn't have much internet back then either. So basically I started taking some medication for arthritis, which made it better,
Okay.
but it was still bad because I would get sleepy. So if I went to class or whatever it was, I would be sleeping all the time.
So how old were you?
So I got my first period when I was 13. So
Hmm.
that started when I was around 14, 15.
Yeah.
So
Sounds the
yeah,
same. Like it's something that I think in our
yeah,
culture we suffer a lot quietly. Go ahead.
yeah.
I'm sorry. You know.
No, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And sometimes, I talk to some friends and some of them were like, I don't feel anything. Like I don't have any pain. And then others would be the same as me. So it was just like very confusing. And
Yes.
also part of me saying maybe it's normal, but then I have these other friends that are not going through this, so it shouldn't be normal then. So it was very, very weird times. So I just started doing my own research. I got tired of asking other people to fix my life for myself. And also, my parents didn't know either. Like it was just, even if they wanted to help, they really couldn't do much.
Can I
Um,
ask where you're from?
yes, I was born and raised in Mexico City. So I
Okay.
lived there almost all my life until I was 20 something.
Okay.
So yeah, it was all back in Mexico. We do have a good private care system if you can afford it, which is
Ah,
not a lot of people, but we
right.
could.
Oh, good.
Thankfully, so even with that privilege, it was still so hard to find a solution.
Yes.
So, without making it so long, I ended up finding out that I had like a couple of cysts and then they disappeared after switching to more organic pads. So I was just using the regular pads that they sell, at the supermarket,
Oh, wow.
and they were causing problems as well. So I tried different pads that they were like ionized, something that came from like Asia. They were like super special and
So
that
you
you
never
could just
use tampons?
I never used tampons. No, I mean I used them a couple of times just for a pool or whatever it was, but
Yeah. See, that's the
not as
thing. Like
a
you don't
daily
know,
thing.
right? Like that was the thing.
Hmm.
You coming of age here in America, and it's like, boom. All right, you better learn how
Yes.
to put a tampon on, and you're like, okay, there's 100 different sizes, and then you're doing
Yeah.
it. And I know with my experience, I don't know if you had that.
Hmm.
It's you're at school. Think about a teenager, a young teenage girl going
Hmm.
through what we went through,
No,
right?
yeah, it's
It's
bad.
horrible.
Hmm.
It's you're already trying to be accepted in a new culture. I mean, did you come here or you in Mexico City when all this was happening as
I
a
came
teenager?
right after that. So I came when I was 16. So I was still suffering from that, but it was right after I started trying the pads.
Okay. So I know I cut you off, but I want people
No,
to
no,
understand
of
like
course,
we're having
yeah.
this conversation because whoever is listening, if you're a young teenage girl and you're just like, I suffer too, but it's quiet because we don't talk about it. Society doesn't talk about it.
Hmm.
Everything's hush hush. In the church, it's more like I don't listen. I learned
Hmm.
about period stuff and everything from watching television, watching other women, right, in my culture.
Hmm.
And then you feel dirty about it.
Hmm. That's actually one point, very interesting point, because in Mexico, of course,
Mm-hmm.
we're Catholic. Most people are Catholic and very religious. And it was about that tampons were invasive. So it was not good religiously to like put something inside you, which
Wow.
has a good point in
Yes.
essence, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just not communicated,
Right.
effectively.
Right.
So I think that was one of the main reasons why I never used tampons, just because I
Oh,
was scared that it was just not right, and
right.
I was scared of it
Right.
naturally because of all that, growing up.
Yeah.
Which
Toxic shock
now
syndrome.
sometimes I think I am grateful for that because then I save
Yes.
myself some issues with now that we know that tampons are toxic and it's being openly communicated. Thank
In
God.
some circles,
Yes.
because like you and I, and a lot of us that study holistic practices and
Yeah.
understand our bodies a little more because what we usually believe is what we're being shown constantly
Hmm.
on, Tampax wants to sell their product.
Yeah.
So we're not going to talk. And then they have it really, really tiny and small. Like this might cause side effect. This could cause toxic shock syndrome. And I remember reading that. I'm like, I don't care. I just need to stop bleeding out
Yeah.
because it was days upon days of pain.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never, I mean, listen, I get it. Like for you, you said that you pass out. I would, it was just, I would just go up into a little hole in my bed and people don't understand because,
Hmm.
then you have family going, mira, no se vaga, vete a la escuela, vete a
I know.
trabajar. And you're feeling crappy
Yeah.
and you don't know what's happening. So yeah, I was on the pill. Yeah, I was using
Mm.
tampons. I had no idea because no one taught me. And I'm not blaming my mom, because she didn't know.
Hmm.
So
Exactly. Hmm.
people just do what they can with the resources they have and the knowledge they know at the
Hmm.
moment. So it's not about blaming, it's about understanding and what are you going to do with the information that was given to you
Hmm.
now, right? So,
Hmm.
okay, sorry, you go back and you're 16. This is how it flies on this podcast
No, it's
because we're
fine.
having
I
a
love it. I love
conversation.
it. Yeah.
So you're 16
Hmm.
and you're suffering because I'm picturing
Yeah.
me too suffering. This is why I wanted you on here so
Hmm.
bad because it's like, okay, we have this kind
Hmm.
of same story, but I'm a lot older than you,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I think, I don't know, you look very young. I don't
I'm
know if
gonna
you're,
be 30 next week.
I love that
So
you are this
no.
knowledgeable and that you started your
Yeah.
company. Okay, back to how, because listen, your story has created this company for a
Hmm.
reason because this is the purpose. Because
Yeah.
people, especially in the Latina culture, I mean, I know you probably work with all sorts of cultures like me, but
Hmm.
because we are who we are, we're women of color that have suffered and
Hmm.
gone through some stuff, we're able to now on the other end of the healing,
Hmm.
right? To go back and go, all right, here are the tools I use. I don't know if it's going to work for you, but you could try them. It's something different. It's not just pill after pill after pill or, Tylenol and Advil. I would take one of each
Oh well. Yeah.
together and it still didn't help my periods.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what helped? I'm going to be honest with you, and I hate to say it this way, but I knew that was doing side effects too. I smoked a lot of freaking marijuana.
Oh yeah, I've been there too. And that
Because
was
you're
the
trying to
only
find
thing that was at least
a
giving
little
some relief,
relief. Right.
but
Yeah.
it was
Okay.
still not enough. So
No.
I'm glad you mentioned it because
Yeah,
yeah.
because we have to understand like
Hmm.
we're trying to it's pain that usually brings us to our mercy of trying to understand, okay, well, enough with the pain, or we just continue on the hamster wheel of trying, and then now you're here with a bunch of side effects because I was on the pill, I was smoking marijuana, I was allergic to cats, so I was on Benadryl, was eating crappy
I was allergic to
constantly.
cats as well.
That's
Oh
so
my God.
weird.
Yeah.
Yes, but
And I just got over it like 2 months ago.
oh, we're gonna have
Literally.
to really.
Yeah.
But that's
A
our
bit,
system, right? Our
I
system
know. It's
changes. We don't know the science behind it, but our bodies continually tell us
hmm
something. And if we don't listen, we just self medicate. It's
exactly.
okay. So back to you starting this company because
This
now
is
that
so
you're,
interesting.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Okay. Keep going. Like, so,
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about all that you're saying and I'm processing while I'm trying to think what I'm going to say next. Yeah, so I started using those pads that my aunt was distributing because one of her friend's daughters had the same issue and she fixed the cysts, like they went away after using this pad. So she was like, you need to try this. Like I know a person that they work for her. So I was like, okay. So I started using them and yeah, like after 2 months, my period got lighter. I got a day
what?
less of bleeding. So I used to
What?
have 6 days of like heavy
Yeah.
bleeding.
Yeah.
And then it started being five and less quantity. I started feeling better. My cramps went down, not like 100%, but uh, I would say at 20%, which was great for me at that point.
Hmm.
And it didn't smell bad. I didn't like I wasn't itching.
Yeah.
Because like normal pads cause all these things that we think that our vagina smells bad when it's
Yeah.
really not that. It's
Right.
what you're putting
And then
in
they
it
start selling you stuff to mess up with
to make it smell
your
good.
right, or mess up your microbiome because
Yeah.
people do not understand that every place that has moisture in the
Hmm.
body is a microbiome. It's its own little entity of
Yep.
beautifulness, how God made
And
us,
it's so
honestly.
absorbent. Like the vagina is
Yes.
one of the most absorbent parts of our body. So it's
Yeah.
like amazing how we're putting things in there and we don't even know. And it has its own, pH regulation, which
That's it.
it cleanses itself. Like you don't need
Hmm.
to put anything.
You don't have to douche.
Um, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have
please
to ask
don't.
this. Did you have anemia?
I had one point in my life. I've always been super skinny. So
Mhm.
yeah, I've had
A
a
mí
lot of
también.
issues.
Yo soy
Yeah.
flaquita, which that's another whole story of mental
Yeah.
thing because
Yeah. Oh yeah.
nobody feels sorry for the flaquitas
Oh yeah.
in this
That's
culture.
we need another episode for that for sure. But yeah, so I had anemia at some point. I was
Me
also, now
too.
that you mentioned it, I think it also has a lot to do with that I was also struggling with food and just mental health in general, which
Okay.
I didn't know at the point. I just didn't have the references or even the words or,
Mm,
to know that I had something.
yeah.
But yeah, I've always had a lot of anxiety and I have trichotillomania, which I just recently opened
Wow.
up about it and started
Yeah.
just talking about it, which is pulling your hair out of
Yes.
stress or anxiety.
Hmm.
So I started doing that at that age, I would say at around 16. So it was just, all these things happening, but the pads helped. And then after that, it just naturally led me to discover the cup, so the menstrual cup,
I've
which
never tried it.
I started using it and it changed my life.
Wow.
It became like my best friend. I was like, thank God I found this.
Is it hard to
Um,
use and where did you get it?
no, at that point, it wasn't that popular as it is now. It was just
Right.
starting.
Hmm.
A friend of mine just gave me, the website where she bought it in Mexico, and I bought one. It was like the Diva Cup. It was like the first one to be
I
super
heard of
popular.
it. Yeah.
It's a good cup. Now there are many, many, many different ones, but back then it was just like a couple of brands that you would be able to get in Mexico. So I got that one and it was great. It was like a good change. I started just managing my period differently. feeling more free without something, there all the time and like wet.
Really? How's it work? Okay,
Um,
honestly, I know, like, I don't care.
yeah.
Like, people that, if you can, you can turn it off if you don't, if you think this is gross or not. But you know what? This is reality for us women, and we need
Hmm.
to talk about these things. We do.
Yep.
We need young girls to understand like this is how our body is made. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing
Yeah,
to try to
completely
hide.
natural.
It's natural. And also that men should learn about this. If you are
Hmm.
in a relationship with a female or you have daughters,
Or even friends or
yes,
nieces, nephews, whatever.
yes,
Like you
you,
still
we
know a
need,
person that's a woman. That's
right.
it.
We have to understand that these are natural processes. Like right now, I'm going through my second puberty, Eva.
Mm,
You know what I
mm-hmm.
mean by that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Menopause. And
Fun.
nobody, yeah, nobody talks about that. But anyway, back to the cup. I
Yeah.
really am curious, and you don't have to be graphic about it because I don't want it, I don't want to get
No, of course.
yeah, but I want to understand like
Hmm.
it's not like a tampon. It's just, is it like a pad? I've seen it before, never have used it. Now, I'm older, I don't need to use it. but
Hmm.
but I've always was curious, and I have granddaughters and I have, my
Hmm.
daughters. So I would, it could be something I could share with them. But can
For
you
sure.
explain it just a little bit and which one you
Yeah.
recommend?
Yeah. So it's basically it's like a how would you it's a cup. I mean, it's like a little silicone container,
Okay.
and it might seem invasive and it
Okay.
might seem hard to insert. I was
Mhm.
super scared at first. It took
Yeah.
me probably 4 months
Okay.
to like from where I decided I wanted to try until I really tried it. And
Okay.
then it took me about 3 cycles to really like get the gist of it and be able to insert it and remove it like confidently and like
Yeah. It's like
correctly.
tampons
So
when you first get your period.
yeah,
Honestly,
that's the
that was the
thing we
weirdest.
need. Yeah. I think we need to really like talk about this.
Mhm.
That is, it's a process. Everything's a process. Like we just want things so fast. Like, oh, this is gonna fix everything, and I'm gonna take a pill or put the cup, and that's it. No, like it
Mhm.
takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time for you to know the things, your
Mhm.
own body. Like most people haven't even seen down there ever or touched
Right.
themselves, like to
Yeah.
find their cervix, for example. That's something
Right.
that I teach on how your cervix can tell you so much about your fertility just by touching it,
Wow.
like finding it, knowing where it is, if it's looking backwards, if it's, whatever, like everybody's different. And we're just so disconnected and we want everything fast. So this was a big lesson for me about that,
Mhm.
which was it's a process, it's going to take time, but if you pass that process, you're on the other side. And the
Mhm.
cup is not for everybody. That's also important to mention. It's not for everybody. Some women have told me, you know what, this is not comfortable for me. I don't like having something inside.
Yeah.
It feels weird. That's fine. Some other women are like, this is the best thing that has ever happened. I'm so happy. I can do everything I want with the cup on and I don't have to worry. So it's like, it depends. So that's why it all comes back to you have to know yourself and what's good for you
That's right.
and just try it. And if you don't like it, you can just not use it, but at least you tried. And
Mhm.
also something that really helped me with the cup was my friend. I think just
Mm.
having that accountability and someone that has been through that,
Yeah.
it's very helpful because she was the one to really like push me like, oh, I've had the same issues, but after 3 months, like you're gonna get it. Like it's gonna be amazing. And
Yeah.
that just kept me going and not giving up on
So that's
like, okay,
community,
first
and that,
month,
yeah,
whatever.
right. That's support,
Mhm.
that's community, that's communication, that's
Mhm.
understanding that, like, have being patient with yourself, right?
Mhm.
Understanding that it is your job to know who you are, right? Your
Mhm.
purpose, and it, because some people come to, but probably both of us, with trauma,
Oh yeah.
right? Trauma because of being a woman,
Mhm.
and that's another whole processing of, like, getting them to regulate. And your period, I would think too, if the more maybe traumatic or higher ACE score, average childhood experiences, you had when you were
Mhm.
younger, the more painful your period might be. It might be genetic. The genes
Mhm.
are the bullets, but the environment is the trigger.
Mhm.
Right. um, but it's also what you're eating, how you're sleeping, what you're seeing, what you're hearing,
Mm-hmm.
and there's ways to process it all. So you're talking about lifestyle because what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying about the 3 months, like you're right. We want a
Mm-hmm.
quick fix. That is how this society has trained us. The westernized industrial revolution culture has
Mm-hmm.
trained us to hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And then we disconnect and lose ourselves. And then now here we're people pleasing everywhere. And now
Exactly.
and then our system is dysregulated.
Yeah.
We're on our brains inflamed, on fire.
And
You
our
know,
guts and everything that can't be
yes,
explained.
it's all connected. So then,
Yeah.
okay, so you're going through this situation. You got the cup. How'd you get rid of the
Mm-hmm.
pain?
Okay, so that part, so with the pads, it was a little better. Then the
Mm-hmm.
pain, I was just taking the arthritis medication. In that moment, it was my transition to move to the US. So that was the time when I moved. I couldn't get the pads anymore because it was really hard for me to, get them from Mexico. I didn't know people in the US yet. It was just very
Mm-hmm.
hard. So I
Mm-hmm.
stopped using them and I used the cup. After that, like just I kept using the cup. And then for the pain, I would buy my arthritis medication in Mexico whenever I went to visit and take it with me. But it was super expensive, so that was not sustainable either. And I was just tired of feeling sleepy all the time when I took it. It was just very,
Yeah.
very annoying. So after I would say a couple of years of that, I was like, this is it. I'm just gonna go through the pain. Like that's it. Like I'm just
Yeah.
not gonna take this pill,
Right.
this medication, and I'm just gonna go through the pain and see what happens. And maybe back then I was very depressed. When I moved to the US, I was 16. I had a boyfriend. I had my band. I used to play the bass guitar, and I had my first band.
I love that.
It was like this point in life where you're so happy and you have your friends and you love going to school, and then you move to another country and you're alone. And it was winter and it was dark at 3 p.m. It was really hard for me to adapt.
Where did you move
Um,
to?
to Chicago, a suburb. It's called Chambord, Illinois.
Oh goodness, yes, from
Yeah.
Mexico to Illinois
Yeah.
at 16 years old.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is why it makes so much sense. The stress, the anxiety, the
Mm-hmm.
pain and everything, because that's hard. And then back then it is what
Yeah.
it is.
Exactly.
You have no choices. You have to, what are you going to do? Go homeless? Like
Yeah,
you're a
exactly.
teenager. And this is because I worked with adolescents for
Mm-hmm.
decades. So I
Mm-hmm.
get it like that. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I will validate your trauma. Your
Yeah, I
parents might
mean,
not validate it because they're like, "Ay, mira,
exactly.
it's toughen up. Like this is part of living. Like we're going to America, like." But at the same
This is for
time,
your own good, or this, and
yes,
it is, but
it's
then you don't
right.
get it at that point.
No, no, and that's a hard place for us
Yeah.
that are immigrant. Well, I'm an American, but being raised
Mm-hmm.
by an immigrant, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of the same. I get the culture big time. I
Mm-hmm.
get
Mm-hmm.
it, and being a therapist in South Florida and Broward County,
Yeah,
like
you've seen everything.
yes. So for you, yeah, like you went
Yeah.
from it had no snow where you were from.
No, no, I've
You
never seen, like, I had never seen snow before that.
okay, Eva, mira.
It was,
You went from sunshine, vitamin D, like we had no clue
yeah,
about that either
yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm from New York, right? And
Hmm.
to a whole different culture, trying to find your way at 16 and in pain, but you probably couldn't talk about it much because who were you going to talk about it to?
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. No
yeah.
wonder you pulled your hair out.
Hmm.
I'm
Of
serious,
course,
girlfriend.
that started getting worse when I moved.
Yeah. Okay,
It
so
was
let's
just the trigger of everything. Yeah.
yeah, it makes so much sense. Okay. So
Yeah.
now you're surviving because
Yes.
we're going to talk about the thriving in a little bit, but right
Yeah.
now you're in survival mode. Your brain and your body
Correct.
now are in survival mode. How'd you get through it?
My family was the biggest pillar. Thank God I had cousins that lived in Chicago, so I wasn't, I mean, I didn't see them every weekend, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them lived in Indiana, so it wasn't that far. So we used to do stuff with them, so at least I had some family like
Oh,
close
good.
and some
Yeah.
aunts and uncles.
Mm-hmm.
But it was bad. I got bullied by my PE teacher at school because I was Mexican. Like it was just hard, like
Yeah.
overall.
Right.
They wanted me to like make another year in high school because of my transcript, and it was just crazy, but whatever. So I went through that just, just, yeah, like bearing with it because all my family was going through their processes too. Like my mom at work, My dad just being because he had to stay at home for that period of time, and then my sister at school at 6 years old. So it was just like everybody was so busy going through their own processes that I
Yes.
couldn't really even tell them so much because they were overwhelmed too.
Right. You didn't
But
want to burden them.
yeah, but as a family, it was beautiful because we just came together. And in Mexico, my mom used to work like long hours, like until 9 p.m. and here would be 5 p.m., which is what was like a big change for the family because she would come home early and be
Hmm.
with us. So it was beautiful in that sense.
Hmm.
We had good time. So I think my family was all and everything I had at that point. I didn't
Yeah.
have any friends. Then I made one friend and she got stabbed by her boyfriend over a Facebook argument. It's on the news and like you can find it online. So it was just a hard period of time for me.
Wow.
I was like, you know what? I lived through the pain for that it was 2 years only. I did 2 years of high school. I was like, you know what? I'm depressed. It's horrible here. I don't want to live here. I'm going
Hmm.
back to Mexico. So
Okay.
I went back to Mexico. There I didn't do much about the pain and the cramps. I just kept taking Tylenol or Advil or whatever I could find,
Hmm.
um, without really making it better. Then I moved back. I kept using the cup, and then there I was older, and I reconnected with this, part of Mexico, which is the ancestral wisdom, and my live. I lived with my grandmother, so that was a
Oh,
big part of it too, because
yep.
I lived with her when I went to college in Mexico because I was depressed, and I went back, and
Hmm.
I lived with her for all the major, and
What
it
did you
was
study? What did
I
you?
studied 2 years of biomedical engineering, thinking
Wow.
thinking
Wow.
that was my passion in life, which
Hmm.
it is, but it just wasn't the right path to
Okay.
study like
Yeah.
that in university. So I
Yeah.
did 2 years, like the hardest part. Then I switched majors and I switched to communications and entertainment business management because
Oh,
both of my parents are communicators, all my family's in that industry. So it
okay.
was just in my blood. And I
Hmm.
tried to get away from that, but I couldn't.
Hmm.
But we're gonna go back to that in a minute because that change was one of the most challenging things in my life too. Just like accepting that I made a mistake and I already studied, 2 years and I was halfway and we paid all this money and it was like really hard for me as a 20-year-old to be like, okay, this is
Yes.
not what I want to do. And I'd rather go through the problems with my parents, telling them the money, whatever it is now,
Yeah.
than doing something I don't want to do the rest of my life.
Exactly.
So yeah, I went through that change. I switched. It was okay. And then there, I went to Finland for exchange.
Wow.
Yeah, so that also helped a lot because I saw how people in Finland, which is it's one of the best countries to live in. I mean, they have, of course, their winter and darkness, but also they're the happiest country in the world, and I see why.
Mm. Well,
Um, I
why? Don't leave
I
us
live
hanging.
there, and
Okay.
it's amazing because their education is just different. The kids do whatever they want to do, not what they have to do. If they're good at something, it's like a
Mhm.
Montessori kind of thing, where
Okay.
everybody does what they're good at and what they're really called to do, and not
Okay.
like a standardized system. They don't have standardized tests. They don't have
Wow.
homework.
Wow.
Kids go to school alone at like 4 years old in the bus with their phone hanging on their necks and they go alone. And it's just crazy. Like it's just a different culture.
Culture.
And they're
Mm.
so connected to nature. So they have all
Mm.
these lakes where they can go and swim wherever without being scared of any weird bacteria going through their noses or something.
No brain. Wait,
Um,
wait. No brain eating amoebas.
Nothing. Exactly. When I came to Florida, I was like, "Can I swim in the lake?" They're like, "No."
Yeah.
Like,
Not
oh,
this one, but maybe that one. That might be
like I'm like, but it's
radioactive. And
not
that one,
Finland.
yeah.
I'm like, so yeah, they recycle everything. They're just so connected. They go to this like big like cabins in the lake, and they survive in nature, and they're so connected to these pagan ways of living that they had, and the sauna, and it's just so much
And cold plunging.
connection.
Isn't Wim Hof where wait, where is Wim Hof from? Do you know who Wim
Yeah, I
Hof is?
think. He's not from Finland, but I don't remember
He's
where
from up
he's from.
there where it's cold
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are blanquita.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that changed my perspective. I was like, this is like how we live like how people live in the US.
Yeah.
It's a lie because this is first country, like first world country. The US is like third. And then Mexico is like fourth or fifth.
Oh,
So that's the
wow.
reality of the world.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that changed my perspective. I came back depressed from Finland because now I wanted to live in Finland for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And then, but I was like, okay. And then from there, I moved to Florida. So where I'm now in Miami.
Hmm.
So then again, all like those comparisons of, okay, like what is this? This difference between these three countries? And that just made me started learning more about myself through all these changes as life was going. And then just being tired of my pain. I just got tired of it. I was like, I can't live with this anymore. Of course, my hair pulling got bad, like
Worse.
even
Hmm.
worse, and then all these things. And I was just engaging myself in this like toxic relationships. Like my life was just not the best. I was drinking a lot of alcohol,
Hmm.
during the week, partying in university,
Hmm.
and like doing, which was fun. Like I'm not gonna say it wasn't fun. But
Because that's what we're
yeah, I
taught.
was,
That's
yeah,
that's the thing. That's what we're taught at a very young age. I remember, you
yeah,
watch TV and even now, even every teenage thing, right? It's going to
mhm,
college, going to the frat party, going to and having alcohol. And little by little, people have no idea. Like if you have that gene to make you addicted, that
mhm.
the downward spiral you'll end up going on because or what it does to your brain for depression. It is in
Oh
a
yeah,
it's a it is a toxin that you're putting in your
mhm,
system. Um,
yeah,
and this is an argument in my culture and in my faith, right? It's like, well, Jesus made water into wine. And I'm like, yeah, but he made it in a special occasion. I get it.
exactly, yeah,
We're Latins, like, a special occasion. There's a
yeah,
wedding, there's a party. We do it once in a while. I get it. But if it
mhm,
becomes your self-medication every day, you have to ask the question, why?
mhm,
Why am I putting this as
mhm.
something, why am I putting poison in my body every day?
And it's just so normalized because everybody else
Yes.
is doing it. So you don't
Hmm.
really stop and think,
Yeah.
okay, what am I doing? It's just, oh, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, right?
Right. And it feels good.
um,
And it's every restaurant, every bar. It's the
yeah.
craziest thing that with alcohol, I'm just gonna just do a little more of it because to me, it's like when someone says, "Oh, do you want to drink?" I'm like, "No." "Oh, you don't drink?" "Oh, are
Yeah.
you are you?" And I'm like, "No, I don't go to AA. I just choose to educate myself to understand what it was doing to me, and that's
Mhm.
why I'm choosing not to because my body is a temple.
Yeah,
My
and
body,
that doesn't mean that you're gonna have a wine sometime in life if you want,
yes,
right? Like
yes.
it's
And I'm
okay.
not
My
judging you.
husband,
Like
yeah,
if you're
my
gonna, my husband drinks.
husband, my husband doesn't drink at all and
Oh,
has never like drank anything. So he gets this
wow.
all the time when we go somewhere. Oh, but why aren't you drinking? He's like,
Mhm.
I've never like, why would
Yeah.
I do it now?
Right. Or why are you drinking? Like I
Yeah,
think it's because people feel uncomfortable or they're feeling they're being judged. And I'm like, no, you're judging me the way you think I'm
yeah,
judging you, and I'm not. I'm too busy trying to be, the best representation of Jesus Christ because my
yeah,
faith. I'm straight up with it.
yeah.
And to me, it's like, no, do not judge because I'm not going to judge you because you guys have your own issues. I'm here to try
Hmm.
to help you, but I need to every day look at myself first because I got some
Yeah,
stuff. Anxiety, girl, I didn't pull my
yeah.
hair, but there's other things that I went off the deep end with, right?
Hmm.
So it's like us being responsible for ourselves. And when someone is not drinking, don't just assume, like stop making assumptions
Hmm.
and stop taking things personally.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay.
Mic
Sorry.
drop.
Yeah. So for you, like, okay, we're
Yeah.
we're going back to now. Here you
Um,
are learning more
yeah.
about you.
Yes.
Finland, you love Finland and it's beautiful and it's amazing and we can learn from that culture because that's
Hmm.
why I like doing this podcast because we have to understand that our way is not the only way.
Exactly. That's the best way
Okay,
to
we
describe
can,
it.
right? We can totally
Hmm.
learn from different cultures. Does not mean you're cheating on your culture.
Hmm. Exactly.
To me,
Yeah, and
every good thing,
incorporate a
yes, every
little
good
of
thing
everything.
comes from God. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you are a believer in a higher power, or to me, it's Jesus
Mm-hmm.
Christ. It's not the religion, it's the relationship. Like, what relationship
Mm-hmm.
do you have with you and the creator of the universe, the way you see it, right?
That's such a good point that you're bringing up. This is like spiritual part of things because at that point I was also very disconnected of my
Mm.
spirituality. I grew up in a Catholic school, which was very, very strict,
Oh, I know.
and
I
I
was
got
raised Catholic.
traumatized. Yeah,
Yes,
it was like horrible. Like,
it was.
oh, your hair tie is not red. You're going back home. It's like what?
Oh, so
It
you had
was
a lot of
like
legalism.
yes, it
Because I'm
was
not put I don't want
very
to I want to make sure we're not putting Catholics down, because I know
no, no,
I had
no,
anger. I
no.
had anger towards Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I will never forget my first
Hmm.
grade teacher. Eva, listen, I'm in Catholic school. I'll never forget this nun. She beat me every day,
Oh my
because
God.
and then tell me I had no self-control
Mm.
every day, because now that I realize I'm a hyper little girl, like I'm not going to sit behind a desk. That's not how I learn. I'm kinesthetic. I need to see it. I need
Hmm.
to feel it. I need to, understand why. Don't beat me because I asked you why. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm trying to find out
I genuinely want to know
no
why.
why, right? But every day it was boom,
Yeah.
the ruler over the hand, getting sent
Mm.
home, no self-control, and then I would get in trouble at home
Of
because
course.
I you see where I'm getting? So that's
Yeah.
that's trauma on a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for
Catholicism,
sure.
like
Yeah.
I see people that actually walk the walk with love and gentle, in that denomination or religion.
Hmm.
So, but I also understand that in every denomination there are religious people, and Christ called that out. Think about that. If you know the
Hmm.
story, like he's like, no, he called it all out. It's not about the religion and the all these rules and everything. It's about you figuring out you, and then
Exactly.
being responsible for
Yeah.
you, so you're able to function in this world in a healthy way. And to me, he's the spirit guide. Like, anytime I'm angry and I want to pop off on someone, I'm like, all right, Lord, I need to pray. Help me.
Yeah.
Help me to not go into the ego.
Exactly. No, for sure.
Okay, so back to
Yeah, I
this year's the
think
spiritual aspect of things.
yeah,
And
that's so important because, as you said, there's a lot of people that claim themselves to be Catholic or Buddhist or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what religion. If it sometimes it's just because you were born into it, but you don't really believe what's behind. And that's the
Mhm.
thing. Like I like to learn the roots because in the end, everything's the same. It's just not like knowledge from God, and it's just it's the same for all religions. Just every religion chooses to manifest their things differently, but the root, the very very root of wisdom is the same, and the like principles
Is
of life
right.
are unchangeable.
That
It
reminds
doesn't
me of
matter what you believe in, right?
to me, it's like in Proverbs, it's wisdom. That's why the book of Proverbs
Mhm.
is wisdom, and to understand it's the knowledge of God. And well, we also have
Mhm.
to understand that we're never going to know, it's a mystery.
Mhm.
And the second you think you know it all, then you have become God. And that's
Mhm.
dangerous.
Mhm.
Then
Oh
you
yeah.
have become your own God, and then it's like, I know it all,
Mhm.
and then you start judging and acting in fear. And when someone doesn't agree with you, you go attack them. And it's that causes so much damage in the cells.
Mhm. Mhm. No,
So,
yeah, that's
all
true.
right. So now you're about done with college. Like,
Yeah,
you
so
get your,
it's about 23, I would
mm-hmm,
say.
mm-hmm,
Because I did 2 years of biomedical, I switched, so it was a longer period of time. I was living with my parents at the time because I just came to Miami to do my internship and it was supposed to be fast, and I would go back to Mexico, which I never did, but yeah, that was the plan. And then I just started, digging more. My dad is very spiritual in the terms of like he reads a lot and he knows a lot
mm-hmm,
about. So he's always told me about this stuff since I was little, like Kybalion and the 7 laws of the universe and all these things that I didn't understand when I was little.
mm-hmm.
But now it just all started making sense. So I went through this, the dark night of the soul that
Yeah.
we call it. I
Crisis of
had
faith.
that living here in Miami already. So I was here. I had a long distance relationship with a guy from Lithuania that I met in Finland. So it was all very complicated. I was just like, what am I doing with my life? Before that, I had like three more long distance relationships, which were just very, it was very hard for me. Like, it was, why am I doing this again? Like, this is a pattern. I need to break. Something's
Mm-hmm.
not right.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept moving. So it was very hard for me to find this like ground and like really like to feel rooted and contained because I kept moving Finland, Mexico, Miami. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I started like feeling that I didn't have a home and I didn't belong anywhere.
Yeah, you weren't grounded.
Yeah. So that of course affected everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went through this dark night of the soul. I realized that, just life. I don't even remember exactly, what went through my mind that day, but my life changed after that. And it was
Mm.
just like this moment where I was like, okay, like I don't even care anymore about, these fears and the consequences. I'm just gonna change my life and live it as I want to live it.
Mm.
And so I broke up with this guy. I started, like changing my attitude towards life because I was very like negative and I was like I've always been very kind and
Mm-hmm.
like easygoing, but I was mad. I was angry at the world, I think. I was just
Mm-hmm.
like
It,
angry with
it
everybody.
makes sense. Eva, listen, this
Mhm.
is as a therapist who's like done this for a long time. I really feel that we have a hurt child. When we have too much stress,
Mhm.
anxiety, and depression, I know we can diagnose the symptom, right? And then we
Mhm.
manage the symptoms. We're managing symptoms, but to get the root cause, like think about it. If you had in childhood not a total functioning, beautiful, healthy, because who does? Like, honestly, like we
Mhm.
all have our story. But some of us, depending on our personality and what was happening, then we have that hurt child. And then you become a teenager. And then that's the angry teenager inside of you.
Mhm.
Right. And that anger will hold on. And you're wiring your brain at this. The whole time you're wiring your brain from birth, from
Oh yeah.
inside the womb.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so you're carrying that stuff on from ancestors, intergenerational trauma. And,
Mhm.
it's like right now, how I see it is God is waking us up to deal with this stuff so we don't continue on this pattern. Because if we continue doing these things that we are doing and you're not becoming aware of yourself and how you're going to do, that's all you have control of.
Mhm.
2020, like the whole pandemic is what taught us that, right? Really, it's like, wait a minute, like there's a lot, like what's the truth, and how do we control this, because it's fear, false evidence appearing real, attacking us, and what are we going to do about it now? You're not
Mhm.
stuck. Whoever's listening to this, you are not stuck. Us two women right here talking to each other, we have been, I have a feeling like you felt stuck. That dark night of the soul
Mhm.
she's talking about, it's also known in my circle as like the crisis of faith.
Mhm.
Okay. And to
Mhm.
me, I've studied both and both sound the same to me. Your God's
Mhm.
trying to shake you and wake you to make you understand you have a purpose. Now you
Mhm.
either ignore it and keep going on the hamster wheel, or you evolve.
Because the thing is, if you don't learn from that, then you
Mm,
keep getting this
right.
this test of life. If you don't learn, you're gonna keep
Yes.
getting them.
The same
So
one. And
it's
until the
the
next
same
one.
one with different people, but same one.
Right. But, or, and that's
Or
to
with
me.
yourself, but with different
Right.
things.
So how did you shift? Like, how did you
Yeah.
change?
I mean, I just changed inside. I think I was like, okay, I need something to look up to. Like I lost all sense of spirituality,
Mm,
but deep inside, I knew there was something bigger than me. Like I've always seen things when I was little. I used to see like ghosts and feel energies and like I knew it because I have it. And I
mm.
can like sometimes I feel things before they happen. Like I have that, skill or whatever you can call it.
Well, I
So
call it a
I
gift of discernment.
gift.
It's a gift of
Now I see
discernment.
it's a gift, but back then I was like,
No, it's
what am I
scary
doing
as
with like
anything.
what should I do with this?
No, it is. And that's why
Um
to me, okay, so I don't know if you know, my grandma was a Santeria medium.
mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, but I don't
Wow.
I don't touch that stuff just
Yeah.
because I know, like you said, the scary, but now I see the gift now that I have chosen to follow Jesus Christ is the gift of discernment.
Mm.
I still pick up stuff. But now I
Mm-hmm.
know how to handle it in a very
Exactly.
healthy way, um, to use the gift to help, not to hurt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it is a lot of praying, because
Oh
some
yeah.
of this stuff is in the spiritual realm. You have to be careful because
Yeah.
there's some dark stuff out there.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
the thing that helped me in that sense was that my mom used to pray with me when I was little. So I did
oh,
have that memory.
I love that.
Even if I didn't understand what it really was, I did
Hmm.
have that in me. So that
Mm,
really, I think, helped me. And my grandma, that was the one that I lived with for like 7 years, she's
yeah.
super religious and she goes to church every Sunday and she's like every day she prays. And so
Wow.
she gave me that like spiritual like strength
Yeah.
that I needed and them too. But I just didn't know what to believe in because I was like, okay, the Catholic school didn't work for me. Then I liked metal music, metal and rock.
Wait,
So
really? You and
yeah,
I are sisters. I'm telling you right now. I
there's
was
no
a
coincidences.
headbanger. Ask my high school friends. Well,
Oh
that
my
was part.
gosh.
Yeah, I loved going to concerts, Metallica, and just like
Oh wow. Okay, so you
AC/DC.
understand what I'm telling
Which one
you.
did you like?
I
Who was?
like all kinds of metal, but I like death metal more. And symphonic metal, the one that's like opera with symphonic
I never heard of
instruments.
that one. But I in
Yeah.
college I did date for a minute a death metal singer and go to his concert, and then but you have I understand it now that I'm older and going
Yeah.
okay and understand sound and megahertzes and
Mm-hmm.
everything.
And
It's
vibrations.
in vibration. You got to be careful because
Oh yeah.
honestly, those that kind of, and I don't want to put that, it was a part of my
No, but
life,
it's
but
true.
like that can cause more mental
Mm-hmm.
health problems. Honestly, it can, and that's why
Yeah.
music and sound and breath work and having to regulate your system.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah, I know.
so back to have a femme. How did that, I want to understand
Yeah.
what you do. Like you got
I'm gonna
to this
make the
place.
jump from that to the Have a Femme. So
Okay.
just like very fast, wrapping this up, I went through that dark night of the soul. I started researching, finding myself, looking for spiritual ground. And I started my spiritual practice. And then I met who now is my husband.
Mm.
He was the one to like really pull me into the spiritual work and like really do the work. And he started just talking to me, basically talking to me, and he started getting things out of me. And because of that, that's what I needed. I just needed to talk to someone, and it was him. And then it just happened. Then whatever, he came to live here, and then a friend of mine introduced the symptothermal method, which is I'm going to talk a little bit right now, which is what I teach at Havofem. So
Okay.
that's how it started. She took it herself in Mexico. She
Mm-hmm.
loved it. She was like kind of selling it to us, like, "Oh my God, this is the best thing." I know I learned so much about my cycle. Now I know what's happening. Then you can have, sex without being like worrying that you're gonna get pregnant and using all
What?
these pills. And she just like told us so many things that I was like intrigued. And I'm like, okay, this sounds like something I need to look into because of my pain, because of all things that I need to know what's going on. And if I
Mm.
can just take classes and learn for myself and I'm
Yeah.
going to the doctor, that's amazing. So I signed up. We took it together. So my then boyfriend, now husband, Jorge, and me, we took it. We loved it. It changed his life too. As a
Yeah.
man, it was like, wow, like, how come we don't know this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so amazing. Now I can understand you better. Like, I can empathize better with what you're feeling, with what your hormones are going through
What?
throughout the
What is it
cycle.
called
Like,
again?
symptothermal method. So it's sympto from the symptoms and
Uh-huh.
thermal from temperature. So
Okay.
basically, it's a method that teaches you how to identify your fertile window
Mm-hmm.
and observe the health of your cycle by
Wow.
only observing your own body's natural biosignals that
My
all
good.
women have, but
Yeah.
we just don't know how to interpret them
Or
or
we
what they
ignore it.
mean. Yeah, we just live with them, but we don't really
Right.
and acknowledge them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just basal temperature, which is the temperature you have when you wake up, when you're like calm without doing activity.
Mm-hmm.
And then your cervical mucus. which is a mucus, natural mucus that comes out of you.
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes we're even grossed out by eating. We throw it away and we don't know that observing that mucus can tell so much about our health
Mm-hmm.
in general. That's why the menstrual cycle is called the fifth vital sign. You can know so much about your health. And then the cervix, which I was talking about before, which is that the cervix opens and closes and goes up in height and down throughout the cycle. And
Wow.
you can feel that. So that's another, symptom that your body has naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned all that. I started doing, the method for myself. Because of course, the first thing that comes to mind, the first fear is because we didn't want to get pregnant at that point.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, oh my God, is this gonna work? Because then you hear all these things about natural methods, and you're like, no, the rhythm, the calendar method, they don't work. They're
Right.
like not effective, which
Right.
is true. They have a lower effectiveness because
Mm-hmm.
they are based on regular cycles, which is that every woman has a 28 day cycle and they ovulate on day 14, which is not true. Even if
Mm-hmm.
you have a 28-day cycle, you can ovulate on another day that's not the 14th. And
Okay.
not all women, have 28-day cycles.
Right.
It's just not possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, because everybody's different. And sometimes you get stressed and your cycle, becomes longer. And menstruation is not what gets delayed, it's ovulation. And then menstruation gets delayed because ovulation was delayed, but it's not really that menstruation gets delayed. So that's
Wow.
another thing that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, long story short, we took it, we loved it, and there is where I found my purpose. Like that was the moment. This was so like through COVID era, and
Mm-hmm.
after that, I was like, this is amazing. I need to share this. I can't keep this to myself. There's no way I'm keeping this to myself. I need to share this with the world. People need to know about this.
Yeah.
And it just started, everything started to get better. I started, to track my cycle, see my luteal phase if it was too long, too short, if I was missing, progesterone, like all these things that I had no idea. So I
So
naturally started making changes
yeah, yeah.
to feel better, and
So
that just diminished my pain so much.
I, I'm just asking, so if you were missing progesterone, like I bet you some people are listening going, what is progesterone? They don't even know
Mm-hmm.
because they put their whole soul into the doctor, which, doctors have their place, but a lot of these like doctors that might be men have not studied this stuff at all. It
Mm-hmm.
is they studied the medication that's going to help the symptom. And
Yeah.
so it's learning. That's why you have to become your own advocate. If you are a female listening to this, you have to know you. This is what I tell
Mm-hmm.
the women that come to me. It's like, do you know your seasons? What? What do you mean? I'm like, every month you have a season, your winter, spring, summer, fall. I try to make it easy because I worked with
Mm-hmm.
teenagers
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, I have no clue. I'm always in winter. Some of them. I'm like, no, I mean, like, do you know when you're getting your period? Do you know when you're, because these are the times you have to be gentle with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The week before
So
when you are
important.
feeling the cramps, I don't want you going to the gym like you've been going to the gym in your summer season, like, where you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling good because right now your body's telling you something and I have to teach them to
Mm-hmm.
start listening. And sometimes it's scary for them. So, I just want to go into because I know it's already been almost an hour and
I
I could
know
sit
this is
here and talk to
so
you for another hour, but I also know that people can't,
yeah.
handle listening for that long either. So I want to know, you know, see if you are listening and you want to know more about this is why you would go to her website and figure out like what else she knows. Do you have resources out there that like if a listener
Yes.
like a beginning,
Yeah,
how
I have a checklist which is very cool because you can just check every month like okay, this is my blood characteristics and my mucus and I'm feeling this. So just check the list and you can know if your cycle or your period are healthy or not.
Mhm.
And then I have a dosha test for Ayurveda that you can find your own constitution. And then from that, like your own physical constitution, and from that, you can then make changes in your lifestyle
Does,
to make things better for you health
okay.
wise.
Yeah.
And then I
Where did they
have
find this? How do you
they can find this at my website. I
Okay.
havafem.com/resources.
Mm-hmm.
There they are. They're free to download.
does the resource explain what you were talking? Because you and I know this stuff because we've studied it and we've had to figure stuff out the hard way for our own selves, for our
Yeah.
own walk. But like when you said, right in the first part, like you could download the checklist and know about what did you say? Not constitution, but like
Yeah,
do
the
you
dosha test.
not the well, I want to talk. I want to hit Ayurveda in a second, but before that, where it's
Oh, the
like,
checklist for
yeah.
knowing if your period is healthy or not.
Yes. So do you teach them how to do it though? Like you might have a checklist, but do you say like, here, you
Yes.
need to go
Yeah.
and do this and the A, B, and
Yeah.
C. Okay. I just want to make sure
Yeah. It's
because
very
like,
explanatory.
oh, cool. All right. All right. So now to Ayurvedic medicine. All right. I know a
Yeah.
little bit about it. I do. I've studied. I forgot. I don't know if I'm a Vita. I forgot because it was a while ago. I took the test and I'm just like, yeah, I'm that wiry girl. We probably are the same one.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, can you explain it a little?
Yeah, so Ayurveda, I would say it's like a way of living more than anything.
Mm,
It's an ancient practice of medicine, if you would call it something, but I just don't think there are words to really explain what it is fully. It's a way of living, and the principle is that everything in the universe is made out of elements, right? We know
mm,
water, earth, fire, and what am I missing? Ether. And so everything's made of these elements.
mhm,
Everything. Like
mhm,
if it exists, it has its elements. And but every element is different and they have different qualities and they have different limitations. And if you mix them, they become something different. So it's like learning how all that exists has different balances and imbalances and distributions of these elements. So
mhm,
basically, you can know that everybody's different, you know that we're unique. But if you get to know your constitution, so Ayurveda has these things that are the doshas,
mhm,
which is vata, that is ether and air. So if you see ether and air, they're like both air substances. So
okay.
vata people are usually skinny. I'm super vata, so I probably you are too. That are most it's air. So imagine the air, how is the air? It's moving, it's like up there. So that's why I'm like so anxious and I'm always skinny. It's like small bodies, skinny people. Your mind is always thinking, you're always like doing stuff, you can't stay sit, like all these things. And then we have Pitta, which is fire and water. And Pitta people are more the fire. So they tend to get maybe angry easier,
Mm,
or they can digest their food faster because they have a lot of fire, or they tend to react to things. So you can see like where the fire can,
mhm,
manifest. And then Kapha is water and earth, which if you think about it, if you mix like earth or soil with water, it makes like this kind of mud.
mhm,
So people that are Kapha are usually bigger in constitution physically, like bigger bodies, not
mhm.
necessarily that they're fat or anything. It's
Right.
just
Big bone. That's what
literally
we
they
call them.
are
We call them
bigger in
big. Yeah.
constitution.
We call them big
And
bone.
then yeah. And then also people that maybe they like to stay seated more, they're always home, they don't like to go out much, or
Mm,
they are like they find it hard to work out because they're always like more like passive.
mhm,
So that's how you can just very basically like understand what the doshas are. So for Ayurveda, if you find your own constitution, even if you don't know anything about Ayurveda, but
mhm.
because Ayurveda is the science of life, it's just all life is Ayurvedic in
Right.
reality. But
Yeah,
even
they're
if you don't know this stuff, only by looking at your own constitution, you can learn so much about yourself.
mhm,
And when I found out about Ayurveda and I started doing this, it was like, wow, like I feel so much better. Like I just know that this is me and this is
mhm,
how I am from
mhm,
birth and that I can't change my skinny bones,
mhm.
even if I work out, even if I whatever, if I eat more. And it's okay. I
Yeah.
feel good and I feel at peace because that's how I was born and how I was supposed to be. And these are the things that I'm doing that make me unbalanced. So if the thing is imbalance attracts imbalance. So if you have
Mhm,
an imbalance of, let's say, I'm always cold, for example, I'm always cold on my hands, my feet. I'm always cold. But then if I will go out to the sun, I get hot really fast. So my temperature regulation is not like as good. but now I already know. So what do I do? Before I used to get like, I don't know, I used to feel ashamed of like, oh my God, how am I gonna be wearing like a sweater when everybody is like naked in Miami, you know? Now I'm like, I don't
Viejita.
care. Like, I
I
don't
mean,
care. Yeah, I'm like, you know what? This gave me so much peace of mind of being like, I don't care
yeah.
what
You
anybody
stop
says.
comparing yourself.
This is me. This is
Hmm.
how I am. And I'm
Yeah.
just gonna be comfortable and I don't want to
They,
be cold. So I'm
that's
gonna
it.
put my socks on and I don't care. Right?
Yeah.
It's
Oh, I'm
just
always
like
wearing socks.
it's always like just accepting yourself
Hmm.
and being compassionate and also being honest with yourself and being like, what
Hmm.
am I doing in my life that is
Hmm.
contributing to me feeling bad? Because that's true.
Mm,
We also,
yeah.
we go against ourselves
Choices. Yeah.
and we're not really honest sometimes. And we want to go to the doctor and fix all the things for us
Hmm.
when
Hmm.
we don't know anything about ourselves.
Hmm.
We are making the worst choices
And
and we
without
just
knowing it
want,
either. Like some people
yeah,
really have no idea. Like I
yeah,
really
yeah,
did
yeah,
not
yeah.
know that every Burger King
Exactly.
I ate as a teenager
Yeah,
was going to, do what it did to me. Like,
yeah.
So I back to the Ayurvedic principles, right? The methods. Do you have something on your website or resource for
Yes.
people to learn or okay, good. Because to
Yeah.
me, it's like I
So,
know there's certain foods, right,
hmm,
that help each one of them. I know it's kind of like traditional Chinese medicine
yeah.
as
Hmm.
well. And that's why I like to have practitioners come on because I need people to understand just because they know this kind of practice, people think it's a religion and Christians get
Yeah,
so scared of it. And I'm just like, no, like you have to understand God made all these cultures
exactly.
and we can
Exactly.
learn from them. Stop being so scared to do
And
that.
these are like elements. I mean,
Right.
they're on
It's science.
everything.
It's a sciencey
It's
thing. It's like,
nothing.
right. And it's been around for thousands and thousands
Yeah.
and thousands of years.
Hmm. And it's
Longer.
amazing because it's the spoken word of how it gets transmitted still after all
Mm,
this time because it
right.
works, right?
Yes, exactly. Okay, so
Um, yeah.
because we have
They have
just
a resource, just mentioning
good.
on the resource,
Yes.
the dosha test, it's in English and Spanish. So even if you want
Wonderful.
in Spanish or English, you can download
Okay.
any of
Did they
them.
find that on your website or
Yes,
is
on websites and my website on the resources
okay, so
tab.
yeah, we have to make sure we go on her resource. All right, so I would love to continue the conversation, but
Part two.
I have a client. Yeah, well, we could do a part two.
We could do a
Honestly,
part
we
two.
could do a part two. But I do have clients this afternoon. I gotta eat something real quick. I gotta eat
Yeah,
something healthy, which means I gotta take time to put
exactly.
that in my system because I am like I would love to talk more about women's health and men,
Yeah,
like menopause. Like nobody
there's
talks
so
about
many
menopause.
things
Right.
that
So
we
I
can
have to
talk about.
ask, you feel good now. So you're now thriving.
Yes. So I am thriving. I mean, I do still have cramps. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I do have cramps. Some cycles are worse than the others.
Right.
But it's just also now I can see why. Like, if that cycle I was super stressed and I didn't take care of myself and I didn't take my supplements, then I see the results.
Right.
So that means that now I have to be really active on taking care of myself
Yes.
because if I don't, this pain comes back immediately.
Right.
So it's
No.
not that it's gonna go away just because I'm like this and it's
Right.
okay. But now I know how to
To do
treat
it.
it and like act accordingly throughout my cycle. So now
Mm-hmm.
I know that if I do all these things
Mm-hmm.
according to my phases and what you're supposed to do, then when the period comes, it's gonna be better.
Right.
So I'm
Eh,
on that point where I'm just taking responsibility for my actions every day
yeah.
and I'm now just teaching other women about this stuff, which has been so rewarding. And now, thank God, I can, have my business on this and help
Yes.
so many, not just women, but couples. It's
I
important
love
that you
that.
mentioned also educating men.
Mm-hmm.
I love teaching couples together because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we as women, we carry so many things already, like so much weight, so much responsibilities, things to do, and fertility is not just for having kids, it's
Right.
health. And even for having kids, it's both. You need a
Yeah.
sperm and an ovum. You can't conceive with just one.
Right.
So men have to be responsible for fertility too. And there are
Yes.
ways in which they can support, their partner in this area because they're so disconnected too. So it's important to teach them as well.
I love that. It's about balancing and
Mm-hmm.
understanding yourself, right? I absolutely love that. So what what would you like? What are the takeaways that you would like the listener to take away? Like what would be the most important thing right now? If someone's sitting there going, I never even thought about my period or my female friend, girlfriend, mom, whatever. Because I honestly, at 40, I wish I would have known you because at 41, I decided to get the Novasure. Do you know what that is? The
Mm-hmm.
endometrial ablation because of the pain. And they're like, well, you're
Oh
done
my
with
God.
kids, you have endometriosis, you have anemia. Like I had all these situations and I suffered for all the way until I was 40. And
Mm-hmm.
then finally I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get this thing done. It was the most, one of the most, I have trauma from that because
Mm-hmm.
think about this. You're on the bed, well, not the bed. It was like it's a, you go in and you come out, but it was a 30-second or a 90-second thing they stick inside
Mm-hmm.
of you. I have strangers sitting there with my hoo-ha wide open, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
they
not.
burn the crap out of me. I never have had periods since then, but I still have everything else. So it's not a hysterectomy. And
Mm-hmm.
then we didn't even talk about fibroids. but
Yeah, that's
but you
another.
know what I love about this, like you knew after your crisis of faith, your dark night of your soul, it was downloaded in you, your purpose, because of your story.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you, listener, you have a story too. You have to figure out how you're going to process. That's why we need community. That's why we need to have you understand you're not alone. I really
Mm-hmm.
thank you, Eva, for sharing your being raw, letting us know about I can never say it, and I have clients with it. No, I have
Trick.
clients that I
You can just say trick.
trichotillomania, right? How do you say it again?
Trichotillomania.
Yes, right. And it's something that if you have
Yeah.
anxiety, if it's not that, there's people that cut themselves, there's people that
Mm-hmm.
hit themselves, there's people that feel
Or
like
nail biting
nail
or
biting
skin picking.
to the bleeding, right? Or picking your
Yeah.
skin. So it's just understanding like who you are and why you're doing it. Why are and there's a way to get out of it. It's not a fast, quick way though. It never
Mm-hmm.
is. I know
Mm-hmm.
my story is not fast and quick, right? Yours
Yeah.
isn't either. Yours is not done.
Yeah.
Like right now, you're still learning, but
Yours either.
no, I know, I know, I know,
Uh,
right? Until God calls me home. So it's
exactly.
like, how do people find mental health support? What do you think? Like on your page, you
Mm-hmm.
have your resources, you're feeling better. So, what are the three takeaways that you think really, really helped you to get to where you
Yeah.
are now?
Wow. If I had to summarize the three, I would
Mhm,
say just that like self-knowledge in general,
mhm,
what we were talking about all along, getting to know yourself, getting deep, even if you don't want to look into some places that are really dark, it's worth it. It's worth
mm,
looking. The second takeaway would be how do you choose to transform the pain? So once you look and you find that pain and you
mm,
find that whatever trauma you have that you maybe didn't even remember you had it, because there are so
yeah.
many things that we don't even remember. Whenever you find this darkness, because it's gonna keep you're gonna keep finding it throughout your life. It's not gonna end. So whenever you feel pain, either it's physical or mental or emotional, how
Mm,
do you what do you do with that? How do you choose to act? So act from the pain as I did. That's one of the takeaways. Like I transformed that pain into my purpose. And thanks
mm,
to that, my life just made like this big change. I got laid off from my corporate job. Like it was just like everything
wow.
started to fall into place for
Mhm,
me to be able to to do this purpose, to like bring this to life and help other people. But it was just the day that I really let go and I surrendered myself to God and to that energy and be like, I'm here, use me. I'm getting goosebumps as
yeah.
I'm saying this, but like
Yeah.
just really surrender. It
It's
sounds
surrendering.
easy. It's not easy.
It's
It
not.
took me a
It's
while and it
scary.
might take you even longer than it took me
Mhm.
and whatever it is, but it's worth it. It's so worth it.
Yeah.
There's no day I wake up without knowing that I'm going to make a difference. And that's just, I wouldn't trade that for anything.
I love that.
So that's the second. And the third, I think not get fanatized with anything. Like, don't become a fan of things. Like, don't get obsessed. Just be balanced, simplify your life. Instead of putting more things on top of you, try to let go of things. I think that
Mm.
we're taught the other way around of like, you need to buy, to get.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes what you need to do is really get rid of all these things and
I,
stay with yourself and the
I,
basics. Are you
yeah,
eating? Are you sleeping? Are you breathing? Like literally it's as
yes.
easy
And
as
are you
that
pooping?
sometimes.
I'm sorry.
And yes, no, for sure.
No, no, it's like,
Yeah,
is the natural cycle happening,
it's
right?
like the basics.
All the five senses, what's coming in, is it all coming
Basics,
out,
yeah,
right?
exactly. So
It's,
those three things I would say.
I love that, Eva. Mina, you're coming back. I know, I feel it, and we'll figure out a different
Yeah,
subject to talk about. But
I
again,
enjoyed it so much.
can you tell the audience where to find you if you have social media
Yeah,
and yeah, good.
yeah. So you can all find me. I have all social media channels. You can just look for me as Havafem. So HAVVAFEM. I'm on TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, LinkedIn, whatever you, Instagram, Facebook. And then my website, which is havofem.com. It's in Spanish and English. Everything I try to do bilingual.
Good.
Because that's also another thing that I find a lot of lack of information in Spanish. So I want to
Yes.
help my people as well. So everything's in both languages, and I post a lot of cool things on Instagram about different topics where you can learn more. And I have some free resources again in my website, havafem.com/resources. You can find all the free stuff there.
Mm,
And yeah, that's it. You can email me as well if you. My contact is info@havafem.com if you want to talk more privately about anything. And
yeah.
that's
Do
it.
you have a free consultation?
Yes, I offer free consultation if you
Okay.
don't know where to start or you just have like a very specific question. I'm always open to
I love that.
take advice.
And everything will be in the show notes, people. All right.
Yeah,
All
perfect.
right. Well, we're going to end this episode. And how I love to end it is to remind the listener to trust in the Lord, guard your heart, and always renew your mind. Bye. And now for the disclaimer to make sure you understand that you are responsible for you. The content provided on the Holistic Counselor podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical or mental condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast are my personal opinions and do not represent the views of any professional organizations with which I am affiliated. Call your doctor, 911, or 988 immediately if you have a medical emergency. The Holistic Counselor podcast does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the podcast. Reliance on any information provided by the Holistic Counselor podcast, guests appearing on the podcast at the invitation of the Holistic Counselor podcast, or other listeners to the podcast is solely at your own risk. Confidentiality notice. If you engage with the Holistic Counselor podcast by commenting or posting and are a client, please be aware that you may be revealing information that could compromise your confidentiality. Please remember that disclosing your identity or personal details can be linked to your clinical material. As a therapist, I am bound by confidentiality and will not respond to any disclosures of this type on this podcast. I am committed to upholding the ethics and confidentiality of the therapeutic relationship, which extends to all forms of communication in accordance with the laws and professional guidelines that govern mental health professionals. I want you to know that your privacy is of utmost importance, and you are responsible for protecting it when interacting on this platform or any other public forum. Thank you.